Last Tuesday, May 10th, 2005, you may not have even realized it, but America became a true police state. Your U.S. senators voted unanimously with no discussion and without even reading the bill to create a national ID card.
The Real ID Act blackmails state governments and turning into driver's license into a draconian tool of the federal homeland security apparatus. Now listen, if states refuse, citizens lose such privileges as being allowed to board an airplane, enter a federal building, or apply for Social Security. President Bush is expected to sign the bill as we speak.
Within the next year, this Stalin-style internal passport will be an American reality, but your government will have more control over you than Stalin ever dreamed of in his most violent anti-freedom dreams. And this, folks, is only the beginning.
Now, dear viewers, know that this kind of information is only allowed to be broadcast. That's right, allowed to be broadcast on independent television shows such as this one out there and shows like Democracy Now. You won't ever hear a word of it on any of the networks.
The creator of the Real ID Act, Representative James Sensenbrenner, smiles and tells us that his Real ID Act is all about solving illegal immigration or preventing terrorists from entering the country. But as Senator Ron Paul says, it's one of the biggest of the thousands of big lies we've heard from the tyrants in Washington. The Real ID Act is about tracking and controlling Americans. You, me, our children, everybody. It has nothing to do with terrorists.
If it was about catching illegals trying to enter the United States, why were the U.S. Border Control agents along the Arizona-Mexico border just last week ordered, that's right, ordered by the White House to stand down? This is the truth. In other words, our own Border Patrol was told to cease and desist as they holstered their guns and watched hundreds of illegals stream into the country.
And you may ask, what the heck is going on? Has everything gone crazy? Well, it has. Of course, as you've heard dozens of times on this show, we believe that 911 was a staged event in order to facilitate passage of the Patriot Act 1 and 2, to install surveillance cameras on every corner, to limit the freedoms of the press and the public, to enable strip searches at airports, and now the national ID system.
As David Rockefeller told a crowd at Davos, Switzerland just last year at a meeting of a global elite, he said, quote, "We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will finally accept the new world order that we've been working so long to implement."
And let's not forget what Henry Kissinger said at a Bilderberg meeting in France. This is a quote. "Today, Americans would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow, they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told there was an outside threat from beyond, whether real or fabricated. It is then that people will plead with world leaders to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown."
Kissinger ends the quote with, "When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government."
So tonight we thought we'd give you a little bit of the future, a little taste of things to come. Within the next couple of years, this will happen, barring a miracle. America, as we once knew it, will be in ruins, gone. And not only your right to travel and your right to be secure in your person and possessions, but the rights of gun ownership will be among the first scheduled for destruction.
For example, you walk into a gun store, fill out a 4473, but instead of looking at your license and taking down some information, the clerk runs your national Real ID card with its radio frequency ID chip through a scanner.
Complete information on every firearm you buy will be instantly available to every police officer, government employee, Walmart gun counter clerk, or computer hacker you ever encounter. And you will be an instant criminal suspect every time you deal with someone who has access to the database.
Well, additionally, the private gun purchase loophole will be closed. And if you're caught with an unregistered gun, well, then the Department of Homeland Security will cut off your driving privilege as well as your right to escape via airplane or highway.
You could be a prisoner in your home, in your own country, or you could be forced to function as an outlaw, operating and living a precarious existence beneath the government radar. You're probably saying to yourself, these projections are ridiculous. They could never happen, but frankly, if the Real ID Act doesn't make you paranoid, you're not paying enough attention or you're not doing your own homework, or worse, you're a Fox News couch potato.
Can't help but think of the movie Escape from New York. Remember, in the 1930s, Congress promised us that our Social Security numbers would never, absolutely never be used for identification or displayed on any document. Now they're the key to everything about us. And without a Social Security number, you won't get your national ID, barometric RFID card, and you won't be allowed to drive, or as the government refers to it, participate as a citizen.
And don't forget that historical congressional announcement back in 1913. Congress and the media swore to us that the brand new income tax would only affect the super rich. And you have to wonder how rich you feel after giving away 40% of your income in taxes.
So be forewarned and be prepared. Beginning in the next year, everybody will be required to show their papers to board an airplane, take a train, a bus, rent a car, enter a public building, a federal building, or even walk into a bank.
When all this happens, remember our program tonight. Make copies of it. Send them to everyone you care about. Unless each of one of us stands up and does something about this, folks, we could be living in a country reminiscent of Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia. And we thought this was the land of the free.
Really, folks, when you get some time, spend an evening or two or a week with your own family, do your own homework. This stuff is real and it's really happening. And it won't change unless you decide you've had enough, that you're mad as hell, and that we're all not going to take it anymore.
A highly classified memo leaked during the recent British electoral campaign raises serious questions about whether or not the U.S. government ever believed that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
The memo, smuggled out of the UK's James Bond-like MI6, discusses the July 2002 meeting between Tony Blair, in which British MI6 chief Richard Dearlove reported on his recent visit to Washington.
The memo stated, "This record is extremely sensitive. No further copies should be made. It should be shown only to those with a genuine need to know its contents. Regarding the danger of Iraq, the case was thin. Saddam was not threatening his neighbors or the U.S., and his weapons of mass destruction capability were virtually non-existent."
The memo makes it obvious that subsequent statements about there being weapons of mass destruction in Iraq were known to be untrue by Bush and Blair. In other words, the U.S. and the U.K. government was in the process of devising facts long before attacking Iraq to fit policy rather than carrying out policy as a result of facts.
Representative John Conyers of the House Judiciary Committee has circulated a letter asking President Bush for an explanation. But in his fashion, the administration has stated that it will not comment on the memo.
What else is new?